Welcome to the Infinite Star Connections podcast. We are your hosts, my friend Jeff Demers and myself, Viviane Chauvet. We know who we are. We are beautiful delegates for so many beautiful intergalactic communities. We are thrilled to welcome back one of our favorites. Don't tell him, but we say that out loud. Dr. Dan Seda has accepted to come back to our podcast. We're going to explore even more his incredible work, but even though that note needs no real introduction, allow me to properly introduce Dr. Dan Seda. And he is an accomplished multidisciplinary performer, psychic medium, Ray starseed, or Arcturian envoy with Andromedan connections, which I love,
Mm.
and of course, author of several publications on cosmic disclosure and spiritual ascension, which I would love to dive more today. His most recent book, Chronicle of an Arcturian Envoy, a Starseed Journey into the Great Awakening, is already available on Amazon, so make sure you go check that out. His memoir, Waiting for Life, a Cancer Survivor Story for That Humor and Love, is also available on Amazon. Dan has a successful life coaching company named Multiviewing, where he channels information on the ORA way from his Arcturian guides into a 5-month human development program, transforming lives and supporting clients through their unique holistic ascension process. Now, if that's not sound delightful, I don't know what that is. It's amazing. For more information, please check out his website, multiviewing.com, and of course, danseda.com. We'll put the link to make sure you can connect with this absolutely amazing person. Dan received his PhD in transpersonal psychology from the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology at Sophia University, his master's in public administration from Baruch College in New York City, and his bachelor's in communication from North Carolina State University. He currently has his own healing and performing arts studios in Sacramento, where he teaches piano and voice, both virtually and in person. He is certainly a tour de force. Yes, you are, Dan. Welcome back to the Infinite Star Connections.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you, folks.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you accepted our invitation right away. You were ready to come back, weren't you?
Absolutely. To see you, folks, of course.
Well, that's incredible. Jeff, if you have no objection, I would like to dive into your books right away. I know
Mhm.
this is about the second one we want to get you have launched, so let's talk about the second book.
Sure. So, a messages of for a message of a hope for a new generation. Very, very important. So, what it does is it's the second of in the trilogy series. I'm actually going to be starting the third book pretty darn soon, maybe within the next month or so. There's been some things that I'm sort of working on right now. My voice is slightly hoarse. I've been teaching many voice lessons today, and also performed at church. We had a, what do you call it, like a hymn sing, where people just called out numbers and we sang every single song in the hymnal. So my voice is not quite up to par, but it's still all good. So this second book actually is really, really cool. It ends at the end of the first book, and I don't want to say too much, but I'll just say sort of the main characters create a school, and it's a school for starseeds, and it's a school that is really taking education and completely overhauling it and getting more back to the basics and bringing more of a spiritual component to things while not having it go fully towards like a religious bent. It's very hard because this book, I wanted to make sure that it was palatable for people. And there's a lot of paradigms that are being shifted these days, and that does include religious paradigms as well. So I didn't want to, for lack of a better word, bastardize certain paradigms that do have some great benefit for people. So I wanted to kind of meld these concepts together and find commonality, which is something that is not happening a lot these days. But people like us, we're doing our best to hold the fort and make sure we're trying to find common ground. And it deals a lot with children, and which of course children are our future. And the children, in my opinion, we can talk about pretty much everything this next hour. But the children, for the most part, on Terra, on Earth, are really being attacked, and we have to make sure that we are taking care of our children, because it's very hard. Nowadays there's so many opportunities for their attention to be grabbed outside of the fundamental benefits of living in a conducive environment for human existence. And so we're trying to tackle that within the book, within a creative framework, to allow science, to allow religion, to allow spirituality to connect both. So it really has a lot of great stuff. Dr. Forthright, who's the main character, he's a college professor, and he does educate. In fact, I had a lot of folks who read the book talk to me and said, man, I want Dr. Charles Forthright to be my teacher, because he has a way of disseminating information that is, it almost transcends age. This college professor is able to touch the lives of these children in a manner that, I can only hope, as the author, is a life-giving, life-affirming way. And that's really what we need these days. It's no longer about, surviving in a career. It's about finding a way to bridge the gaps, to do your own inner work, and to take as much as you've learned throughout your internal process, and match that of the younger generation, who actually has a lot of the answers that we seek. Oftentimes it's the simplistic answers that are really ring the most truth. So I'll leave it there for now.
Um, how much influence has like the Arcturians give you? Do
Mm.
they support you? Do they give you a guide to go by?
Yeah. So my life coaching company, it's called Multi-Viewing. It's sort of like being able to see things in multiple different ways. That was channeled. I didn't know it at the time, but I always felt my team with me. I just didn't know exactly what that was. But I would just meditate, and I would literally feel them like right next
Mhm.
to me. And then it got to a point where I could sort of differentiate between my deceased loved ones, which were, my grandparents and stuff that passed before me, who were quite pivotal in especially the last decade or two of my life, but also my main guide, who's been with me for a very, very long time. So there's a lot going on over there. So I will say that all of my books, for the most part, there's a lot of channeling going on. It is not normal, in my opinion, for people to write a dissertation in 5 months and complete that dissertation in 5 months. That's not very normal. Usually it takes many years. My memoir was basically a conglomeration of journal entries that I've had throughout my life, and I basically just put it all together in a book, and that took maybe month and a half, 2 months. And it was very strange because I could see how to tie everything in. And I'm going to say it wasn't quite me, because I really don't feel like it's just me. And I have to give honor and credence to that, because if it was just me, I couldn't do it myself. I mean, I couldn't do all these things. But I keep saying this when I do interviews, but my beautiful dog is right next to me. So if you hear some grunts, just know it's him. And he's just moving around. His 15th birthday is tomorrow.
Ah, wow.
Yes. He's such a good boy. We got cake and
Oh,
everything for him tomorrow.
that's awesome.
But this
Happy
this
birthday, beautiful soul.
this interview is definitely dedicated to him. I've had him since he was 8 weeks old.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've been his father. So yes, a lot of channeling going on. Also, too, I have to say, and Vivian, I'm sure you're an author as well. Tell me, did you feel this too? And every author is different, but when I was writing the book, I did not prepare anything for it. I literally just sat down and I said, what needs to be expressed through me and only through me? What can I do? And I just got all the information. And every single chapter I wrote in a day. This second book, it took basically an average of 2 days. So instead of 20 days, the first the book of the series, this took 40 days. And I had to respect that process. But I will say that it never felt like it was just me coming up with things, because I could sort of hear the voices, I could feel the characters. Um, you know, there was also, when I was a performer a long, long, long time ago, back in the old days, I did a lot of training and acting and performing and stuff. And there was a part of me that always knew that that training was important for me to be able to disseminate information in creative ways so that people could um, sort of take it in, especially the paranormal or the psi related, the odd stuff that people don't normally know or believe exist, to bring more validation to those experiences. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is through the creative mediums. So, roundabout way to answer your question, Jeff. By the way, I love your haircut.
Got them all cut.
I love it. I got a few of those too. It definitely was some channeling going on there, a lot of channeling, and I always thank my guides for it, because um, without them, I wouldn't be able to do what I can do. So,
Well, is it the same group that Vivian? Do you think it's the same group, or is it like different levels of Arcturians that Dan's talking to? Is it
there's
like, is there like different, when people talk about Arcturians, I am assuming that they are talking about, the one and only Arcturian, but there's got to be different levels, right? Is that my understanding, right? So
well,
that, you know, your Arcturian isn't the same as Vivian's, because maybe yours is as a number. So yours is a fourth density, hers is a 12th density.
well, if you don't mind me just jumping in real quick, I don't feel as though there's only one. One Arcturian. There are councils and there are representatives, and there is definitely a connection to something more collaborative in general. But I will say that when I feel more of the semi-singular kind of energy, that's a little bit more of the Andromedan. But I will say that there is one essence that I kind of feel, or one string of voice that is more Arcturian, which for me, I handle more of the scientific, kind of the more challenging information. Now, the Andromedans do help me get more of that heart-centered component in my writing, but that's just what I feel. So yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
I wanted to say about that, and that was a good question, Jeff. So, um, I want to add another layer to support what you just said, Dan. To think of it this way, the Arcturian civilizations, we will have different council and group that will be assigned for either to our point of contacts on the planet, those we work at the soul level, a different star regency council level, and of course we have our star seeds on the planet. So of course within a really big, wonderful, and very advanced civilization, we will assign groups depending on, like for you, then your group Arcturian within our civilizations, helping you to supporting the transmission, the guidance, the creativity of your writings, which will come back. I want to talk to your book about your book a bit more.
Mhm.
And so with my group is we know that my Arcturian father has assigned a permanent group within our collective that work very closely with me during my Earth mission.
Mhm.
But it's like saying working with the Pleiadians. Well, there will be different level of Pleiadians assigned to different mission, to different overseeing different aspect of the Earth evolution or even the ascension evolution. So I can feel, well, ultimately the your Arcturian guide then will, at the end of the day, when we're back on the ship, we talk to each other. It's just there is this collaborative energies. It's just we recognize it's like saying, okay, this is the group that you were assigned to. This is my group, and we're part of the same collective. And that's the beauty I feel about, working, truly working directly with the true Arcturians. Now, since we're on the topic, I have a burning question I have to say out loud. Is it possible in any shape or form or even capacity to mistaking an Arcturian for a Grey?
Oh,
Oh,
I don't
I
think
can answer that
so.
for you.
Yeah, let's do it. But my first inkling is, you can tell. I mean, I'll just speak from my own personal experience. You can tell the difference. There is an overwhelming I think that's why a lot of blues, I guess you could say, have been confused with angels and stuff in the past, because there's such an overwhelming sense of like love, joy, all knowingness, just respect, adoration, these types of things, but not in a way that is, pleading, like, oh, dear God, help save me. There is this, it's a little hard to explain, Vivian, but there's just an overwhelming sense of heart centeredness and heart mind. And if you're dealing with a gray, there's basically none of that. You can feel, sometimes, depending on where you're dealing with, sometimes they really try to ping you psychically. They try to really get you. I remember one time, and I said this before in a few different interviews, but I don't know if you call it an astral projection, I don't quite know, but I was on a ship and it was cold and it was gray and it was kind of nasty, and I could only have a very small purview, and there was a gray in front of me, and that, and their awareness, it felt a little bit more of a lower density, so that it was almost competitive to some degree, where it was like, I know you, I know what you're doing, and you're not going to get to me, kind of deal. And so my soul knew what it needed to do. It basically shielded me from my emotions so that they could not read me. And thank God I got out of that situation. But I never had any of that with the Arcturians or the Andromedans. So, yeah.
I also want to point out too that not all Zetas are bad.
Mm-hmm.
Of course not. Of course not. And I was going to say that, just to clarify here on this podcast, we do respect the intergalactic communities. We understand where they come from, where they're evolving from. But I think what I feel more, because I understand the subtleties of what you were explaining, Dan, is that when you're in the presence of an Arcturian being versus in the presence either of a Zeta or also known as gray, there's such a distinction that it is impossible to mistaking one for the other, and especially not based on a physical description, whether how many fingers do we have. Anyone, in my humble opinion, who say that is just creating distortion for absolutely useless. There's no need to create distortions. So we want to make sure we understand that we respect the entire community, and every one of them has their unique expression and their place in creation. But yes, it's about a distinction into the experience, and that leads me to the other points to support everyone in your own. How could I say that? Your own connection, your own experience with different intergalactic groups. It's all about the experience. How do you feel? You know, connect more to the essence of the being rather than how many fingers do they have or how big their eyes are. Just connect to their essence, get to know them, and you'll become an expert on your own to understand the frequency of each, the uniqueness of each. And can you imagine being able to learn from this?
Mm-hmm.
That would be phenomenal. What's your thought about that then?
Well, I think you're exactly right. And I know I'm pretty sure Jeff has something to say as well, but you can, hopefully people are doing their own inner work and recognize that traumas, based upon one's current lifetime, and I'm sure lifetimes as well, other lifetimes, people have to sort of work on their trauma. And if they have certain experiences with other beings or whatnot, that could be playing into their understanding of relationships with these extraterrestrial beings or celestial, or however which way we'd like to call it. But if you do your own inner work, you can tell. That's why I think there's so much going on in the community these days, and so many of us are waking up to some truths that perhaps many of us have been, maybe lied to, by some folks and stuff, trying to pull the narratives and steer things different ways. But I have learned throughout all this process is trust your own inner guidance. No one else has any control over you, and if they do, that's a problem. Okay, sovereignty, discernment, but you have to trust your own experience, because when you do that, then you give other people the opportunity to live their best lives. We're none of us are here to control anyone else. So that's just what I'm learning as a 40-year-old. I'm halfway through life. I'm like, wow, I can start owning my experience now and not have to care so much about what other people think. So yeah.
Beautifully said. And you're still a youngster with
Oh,
experience.
Wait, what
A
are you talking
youngster
about?
with experience.
I'll take that. I will.
I'm 60 and I'm halfway.
You look good, Jeff.
It's the
No
haircut.
way. Come on. You're pulling our leg. You're not
Yeah.
60.
Oh yeah.
Well, no, you're a Ponte 60. That's different.
Well, I also like to say too that when these extraterrestrials see you or
Mm,
everybody, they see them as energy. They
sure.
don't see you as me wearing a shirt, short haircut. They see us as energy, so they recognize you right away, and we have to understand that so we can recognize them just the same.
That's a very good point. And I do talk about this, I think, in the first Chronicles book. But we as human beings, for the vast majority of us, only see 1% of the
Right?
visual light
Yep.
spectrum.
Yep.
Imagine what the other folks can see based
Right.
upon where they come from. So it's like we have to understand there is so much more to this experience that is beyond just us. We are a small fractal of it. We have to trust and honor that, but continue to do our work so that then we can raise our vibrations to attract more of those higher vibratory beings within our lives for assistance. So,
Absolutely. And you pointing at a very important point here, Dan. It's about the vibrational resonance. To see where are you? Are you skipping your vibration at a higher level? Are you really listening to the guidance, the wisdom of your heart? And again, everyone, this is far more than a cliche. This
yeah,
is very much the key element of recognizing your own experiences, be in your light, be in your truth. And it's going to make such a big difference to be able to see, no, I can feel it. I will connect here, and this one I choose to release.
yeah,
And it's all good.
And that's how people can identify certain energies, certain people. Like, man, this guy's. I just want to be around this guy because he's great. Because we can pick up on those frequencies and those vibrations, and you get drawn to it.
yeah.
Same thing that happens out there. Same
Mhm.
thing.
Oh yeah.
That is so true. So
You know,
true.
Jeff, that was so beautiful, and it's they're sort of bringing me a little bit higher in that conversation. But that right there, I think, is an excellent lesson for all of us, viewing this interview, where it's, the more that we can open ourselves up to recognizing the subtleties of frequencies and vibrations, and recognizing when we are attracted to certain things and why, that can give us a little bit more of a broader perspective of seeing the unseen or the supposedly unseen. That's a good point.
Yeah, because I noticed right away that Vivian, she's the real deal. The first time I met her, I'm like, holy shit, this person here this one's different than anybody that's around here.
Yep.
And look what happened.
You're you're
It's all
amazing, Jeff. I've always remembered the first time we met. It's written into the history of
Yeah, I was just like,
of
I
the earth. Absolutely.
couldn't believe it.
But that brings me to, and thank you so much. I always feel honored for sure, and I appreciate it. I'm very humble at the same time. And that's part of the great journey of many starseed have taken, and those what's called the celestial souls who have returned to Earth as starseeds. Oftentimes we have very humble beginnings,
Mm.
challenge either family challenges, humble in terms of maybe resources just to get by, but very humble beginnings. And one of the things I discovered is that this is part of the premise of what the star seed comes, because their mission, their responsibility is such a high level to bring back the purity of love, divine truth, elevation, spirituality, and all of it. It really helps them to better understand, connect to earth humans, understand the energy, will understand the challenge. It's truly to a heart connection. So, and I love all the comments right now, by the way, that a lot of people relate to what you're saying. They agree with you, lots of love, heart
Yeah.
likes going on. And for you too, Jeff, by the way. And
Mhm.
so, and Cosmic Alchemist Center said, yes, Vivian is the real deal. She's a magnet of pure love. Well, I came from this earth background, very humble beginning, great family, but very humble. I mean, growing up in a small apartment, 2 bedroom, squeezing in with my brother, it was a blast just to be with them. But we were very humble and yet very connected, talking to star beings and talking to the earth. So I'm sure, Dan, by your own background, because I look at your bio, your memoir, Waiting for Life, a cancer survivor story of that humor and love.
Mm.
That's a huge testimonial of a really humble background. You want to talk about this, Dan?
Oh goodness, how much time do we have? I'm just kidding. Don't
A
look at the.
lot, actually.
Oh, great. That is a great question, and a part of me was thinking while you were talking about that was, um, you know, um, uh, there are many times when I look back over my 40 years, and I really do think, like, how in the hell did I make it? Because there's been so many
That's
times.
what he gets for swearing.
Hey, you started first. I'm just kidding. But yeah. I'll put a quarter in the swear jar. But it's just been so interesting because I knew, and I say I knew because I heard my team say, that all of this was so that I could keep my feet on the ground and do the work here to show up, bring the vibration in, continue to alchemize and transform situations into hopefully a positive, more loving, more mindful way. But I mean, having cancer at 4 years old, so many memories, so many things, but also here's the hard part: you can still remember all of the sincere hardships, but still the joy that came from even just a glimmer of hope in a nurse's eyes. You know what I mean? Where I know I was in severe pain, but wanting to make the nurse happy, because what was my pain going to do in this situation other than just make it worse if I just continued to express that pain? So I had to figure out how to not bury it, but how to alchemize it. And so that's why I stepped into performing, when I was a teenager, maybe my 20s, was because that was a very interesting creative way to transmute energies, whether it's from me, through me, but also around me, on stage, through the camera, whatever. But I got to tell you, there's been many times, and even very recently, when things happen and I just go, well, I've done research into the past lifetimes, reincarnation, karma, this and that. And I'm like, there comes a point when it's not just that. There comes a point when there's some sort of a broader, larger mission involved. And if I could get to where I am right now, given where I was, then I have 40 more wonderful years to share my story and to hear more wonderful things and to be a part of this very tumultuous, challenging, but fascinating time in our human evolution. So this time of the Great Awakening is a really pivotal part, and that's what gets me through. When I have very tough days, I go, wait a minute here. I'm here for a reason. And even if that reason is simply just get up and go sing in the church choir with my friends, something like that, or to walk my dog and to share those moments with my beautiful soulmate dog that I know wherever I will go after this planet, he will be with me either in spirit or whatever. But he is my soulmate, and I just love him so much. So he is just resting over there, enjoying himself. But long story short, the reason why I did that subtitle there, a cancer survivor's story of death, humor, and love, surviving, not a cancer, diseased person, a cancer survivor's story of death, because I had the near-death experience. I died twice clinically, my heart stopped twice, I flatlined. So I had that story. Humor, because humor raises our vibrations. And humor was a wonderful way in which I could alchemize the pain that I was really experiencing, and also that I was collecting, understandably, from other people in an empathic, intuitive sense. and love, finding love in many different ways, finding love in many different situations, relationships, and people and things, and continuing to search for that in every given moment. Okay, I'll stop.
No, I think it's absolutely wonderful. I can feel the energy, and I love your approach, even at such a young age. So that tells you, you're an old soul to bring that kind of approach, even, and I can relate to that. And I know many people you can relate to that, and even from a young age, whatever challenges or pain you were going through, that perspective comes through because of your connections. And yet, animals are 100% amazing. I know, Jeff, you have your dog too, don't you, your boy?
Oh yeah, he's actually behind me sleeping.
Oh,
How old is he?
Hell, I don't know, 8 years old.
Oh,
You
you're
know.
still together for a long time. Okay. I'm curious,
Go ahead.
is your Ponty group play with your dog?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
he takes a look at him. He looks at him. And they were here last night, just cruising around the house. Literally, I could see little wisps of them. I'm like, God damn, it's gonna be one of them nights again.
hey Jeff, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So I've never researched the Ponte or anything, but what I'm getting, are they kind of like a little playful? Are they kind of like a bit of a youthful energy?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
They like exploring things,
Yeah.
picking up stuff. They drop forks and spoons in my stainless steel sink. Just it just doesn't. Forks don't just jump out and just fall into it.
Mm.
But
Mm.
but they like picking things up, moving things. They like tapping, picking up the quartz crystals and tapping them. Then I find them in a different part
Mm.
of the bedroom. Yeah, I just they're more of a nuisance now than they were at the beginning. Before it was kind of fun, but then you started stealing my socks. So, and they stole a few things. They stole my wedding ring. I still never found it. I had to buy a new one.
Oh boy.
I bet you it's stuck on their finger and they can't get it off. So I'll find it later.
Well, let's just say that your group very different from our group. The
Yeah.
Arcturians, very different indeed. And I'll tell you, Dan, once in a while, Jeff's group come to our house in the middle of the night. We can hear them playing ball because we have a two-story house. So we can
Mm.
hear the ball going tong, 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 tong to
Yeah.
the staircase.
They like jumping too. I mean, I can hear them like somebody jumping from our loft down to the wood floor. Bam! I'm like, God damn it.
Now this is interesting because like one never knows how organically things are going to occur. But I will tell you, last night in the kitchen, I heard someone rustling through bags. It was a very strange sound because I was like, oh my gosh, it's an old house. Do I have a mouse? Do I
Hmm?
have something? But it was different. And so I kind of quickly went into the kitchen. I turned on the lights. I assessed everything. I looked at the bags. I opened every single thing. Nothing was there. And I made hardly any sound. And then I got a glimpse of my team, and they basically were sort of laughing in a very beautiful way. So I didn't know what that meant. But it is interesting now that we're having this conversation, Jeff, because now I know perhaps maybe there was something like that going on over here. Because I checked everything and I'm like, what is going on? I went to
I mean,
bed. I was like, someone's playing something.
that happens so much that I put cameras up, and when I hear these things, I look on my phone, and all these orbs are
Mm.
everywhere in the house. I mean, it's like I I don't know if it's the Ponte exactly, but if you see an orb and it makes a sound, and I feel like it's got to be these guys, because who else would be doing that? My house is their house, but I actually have physical evidence, and I recorded it many times. I recorded so much, I stopped recording it now because there's no point,
Yeah.
because it's the same thing every night.
Well, it's almost like the evidence is more for you than anyone else because I mean, it's from what I'm gathering from my own life, it's like I don't need anyone else's approval for really anything
Oh
in my
no, I don't care what
that's a
anybody thinks.
that's a powerful place to stand in because back in the old days I was all about giving my power away and helping or whatever, but now it's like no. I'm not helping anyone or myself if I'm not taking care of my own self. So yeah, good
Yeah,
for
I
you.
know. So yeah, but yeah, just watch your black socks, buddy. So
Oh,
One of these days, I'm going to go there and see him in the mountain. Everybody's going to be wearing my socks. I'm going to say, "That's mine. That's mine. That's mine." So,
See, I have no worries about it with my Arcturian group. When Father comes in, the only thing I can see is a lot of flashes of light to begin with and very, very tall silhouettes.
Mm,
And my Bengal cat, my famous Peanut, is known for her famous tail on the screen,
mm.
she fixed and her eyes is like pointed to the ceiling. Yes. And I look
Charlie. Mhm. Go ahead.
right. Is it does he do the same thing, your boy?
Same thing. And okay, here's the crazy thing, because you know that there is a very tall being. Now, I can tell you so many things where I was in, our, King Tempur-Pedic bed at one point in the Sacramento house, and I was laying down and I was sort of in between dream state, and I don't sleep very often. If I get 4 to 6 hours, that's a good night. But I felt a very large being come into the bed, and I could hear and see the depression in the bed. That's insane. Okay. I wasn't on any psychotropic drugs or anything, but that I just knew. I'm like, there we go. And like, it was all the way to the end of the bed. So that says right there, a very tall being. Also, Charlie, whenever he looks at the beings, he doesn't just go like this or follow like a normal 5, 6 foot thing. He is like this. He's looking at a very tall being. And actually, right now in the kitchen, I'm hearing some stuff. So it's just so funny.
and people are going to think, well, if it's making a depression, how come you can't see it physically? Well, it's because energy does have certain amounts of mass, and
Mm.
that is what is happening. It is an energy force that is moving that physicality.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was funny because when that was happening, I actually, it's slightly vulnerable for me to say, but it's important. I did actually give my hand because I felt that it was my team. You tap into it and you can feel, especially from like a psychic or mediumship perspective, the difference. I actually gave my hand and I laid my hands down in the bed, and I could feel a bit of a hand grasping mine, very gently, of course, just gentle things. That also too, like the near-death experience when I had that gigantic being next to me, and my out-of-body experience when a very tall being was holding me and carrying me. So those are physical things, somatic experiences that I've had, and I'm just very grateful to be able to have these outlets to talk about them. But it's also really cool to know that I don't need anyone else's approval about it either. So it's nice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I already said, if you don't believe in this stuff, come over to my house for a weekend.
Yeah.
And
Or get hit by a car, but you don't want that.
when we get married and you come over, my house is kind of a weird place, so I hope you're ready for it. So,
I think that by now we're used to it.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you for sharing that, Dan, because I like the fact that you weaved in there was a corporeal, physical sensation of being holding you. And that really, for me, it feel like it heals the gap of people. A lot of people think that it's only physical. It's true. If it's not physical, it's not as valid, which
Mm.
is completely the opposite. Is all out of body experiences is as real as any physical experiences, especially with interdimensional beings or intergalactic enlightened beings who have the capacity to adjust their own frequency to
Mm.
be able to interact with you. So again, be in your heart, you'll know.
Yes, and the Arcturians are very good at being able to manage those density changes and stuff. Really cool. Mm.
okay. Now,
Precisely.
when you say a team, could you have a team consists of an Andromedan and an Arcturian, or is it just separate ones?
That's a great question. Maybe I'll throw this to Vivian if you'd like, but I can answer it as well. But what do you think, Vivian?
I will briefly answer because we want to hear more about you. This is about you right now, Dan.
Mhm.
Yes, when we say a team, it
Mhm.
can be a delegation or a collaboration of different groups that you're simply at a soul level working with. I know personally, I also work very closely with the Andromedan. They're very often time here, lots of feline humanoid beings from Alliance. I do have two of my former cats who are Lyrans, and one of them is like a huge guardians, and he's always around. So of course you will have core group. We know I'm Arcturian at the core, but I work with a large delegation. So when
Mhm.
I personally say my team is my Arcturian father and my Arcturian group assigned to me, but that's in addition to the delegation that we work with. What is your take on that then?
That was fantastically answered. Also, too, there is, from my perspective, there's almost oh, because when we talk about these sort of extra sensory things, it can be challenging. There can be some subjective aspects to it based upon our own levels of consciousness and understanding. So I've been lucky enough to have some really cool physical experiences too. For instance, I had one, I still remember this to this day. I had a can of Coke on a counter, and the counter was tiled, and it was like poorly tiled, so there was spaces between like the grout and stuff. And I had a can literally move in a semicircle, and there was no condensation underneath the can. It was a hard surface. These types of things I've seen physically and been able to experience physically. But when it comes to my team, I say team because it feels that way. It feels like there are many, many, many people connected to certain, I'll say a representative or two, but it's not necessarily like that per se. Perhaps, and I'm still questioning this, perhaps it is my brain's way of understanding the complexities of the collective energy through one singularity or through one singular representation. So perhaps that is a way in which I can consciously understand it, but my main Arcturian guide, which is how I frame that and how it looks to me, I have him, but then there's an Andromedan back force that steps in when I need them on an emotional level, because I feel things very, very deeply and very on the surface. Back in the old days when I was much younger, I didn't quite know how to control things. I would always say that I had my emotions on my sleeve, which is very true. But I've eventually learned how to, through my experiences, been able to temper that as best I can to be professional and to be an adult. But it's very hard because I feel things very deeply. So I do tend to feel the Andromedans almost, they sort of come to me and they give me this this like compassionate blanket of knowing, or they're a little bit more of the softer energy. I find the Arcturians for me, as a little bit more intellectual. So when I require something that needs a bit more of my, and again, my moon's in Virgo, so I like organized things to explain. But that they help me with the intellectual. And I got to tell you something. There's been some times recently when I have had such profound answers from them. I can't even get into it right now. But it's been mind-boggling. I need to write them down because that might actually be, thank you. That actually might be a part of my next book. So we will see. The next book might have much more prolific things that not many people are talking about. So we'll see.
Now, I got a question for both of you guys,
Yeah.
because you guys are pretty in tight with your connections, which is higher than mine. Why is it so important that we need the help from them? What makes us worthy for that?
One of my guides, if you don't mind me saying, just said, well, you asked for it. So I perhaps we as a collective source
The
request,
collective human, Earth human.
yeah, perhaps we requested it, but why do we? It's hard because words are so powerful, and then the word need or things like that might have different connotations. But, and I know Vivid's going to explain this so beautifully, I can feel it very soon. But I will say that they could only show up in our existence on more of an understandable way if something about us has opened up and called for that type of assistance or that type of loving knowing. So many people that I know look up to the stars, and there's something within them that knows that they are not solely from this planet. There is something more that on a genetic level that they know that they belong to, and that they know that is their birthright. Many, many star seeds as well. So I will simply say, of course, they don't want to be seen as saviors. We all know that. But if we have a connection to each other, and if we have a broader knowing of something that we could consider to be extrasensory, clairsentient, knowing things without reading it or whatever, these types of things are connected to a broader sense of who we are, because we're not just this corporal entity. We are a soul, and we are souls of souls. So I will just simply say this connection never ceases, and it's our human development and understanding of who we really are at our core. As we continue to work on ourselves individually, it simply adds to the collective, and that collective is yearning for more truth. So anyways.
Vivian, you're up.
Beautiful. I know, beautifully said. Well, the microphone is mine.
And you
Um,
got that.
I'm going to start my answer of one of my favorite part of one of your book. This one
Oh,
here. Okay, Chronicle of an Arcturian Envoy. This one is a starseed journey into the Great Awakening. So I'm going to show you again. Make sure you can see it. So thank you again, Dan, for sending me both your books. That's a mighty gift.
yeah,
And I want to just, with your permission, it's going to be just one line. I want to read one line, and I'm going to answer the question from there. Is that okay with you?
that's exciting.
Okay. Chapter 10, one of my favorite, Star Lineage. One of the character called Dahaniel. I hope I make it justice to the name because it's gorgeous. Says, you and your people are the product of the founders, as well as 21 other races. And talk about the Federation began corresponding with the other characters in Dream State and how the lineage come about. But just that phrase right there, then you and your people are the product of the founders, as well as 21 other races. And that's an extract I'm reading directly from Dan's book right here, chapter 10, page 123 to be precise, right here. And the reason when I bring it up, because when I was reading the book, the energy, the fluidity, it's incredible behind the characters, the dialogue, the synergy. But that caught my attention. And my group says, remember that passage of the book which interweave with the answer. There is no why. It's only because you exist. As we are part of each other, it is implied that we will be helping an entire civilization going into what's called a great divine remembrance. So we're here to assist everyone to tap into the divine remembrance, knowing even at a DNA and the RNA level that all the gene pool that you carry from so many intergalactic groups, that you're part of the communities, always have been all along. And so when we look at a celestial body known as a planet, Mother Terra, or Gaia as you know it, going deeper into a descending form and finally reascending back to her divine celestial self, of course we're going to be there to support all of you. So many celestial souls have come from level of masteries and even ancient civilizations. There's many Atlantean masters or Lemurian masters who are here. So it's more of the because of who you are that we're here. Remember, it's a partnership ultimately. And that's what came to me when I was reading that one line to your book, Dan. And that's the answer I'm getting.
Perfect.
Excellent. Hey, Dan, have you ever seen a UFO?
Well, are you talking about the ship itself, or
Anything. A physical ship, an actual 3D Earth physical ship.
Yeah. So I remember when I was, this is odd, but I was close to my middle school, but not in age. I think I was probably early 20s, something like that, before I went to New York. I was still in Raleigh. And I remember watching a sunset over my middle school. I used to drive a lot. For me, my double Gemini needs to escape as best as I can.
Oh my God, double Gemini.
But the Virgo moon. And so I would drive sometimes nice and slow, just sort of meandering in nature, whatever, park my car. And all of a sudden, I was at my middle school, nobody was there. I was watching a sunset, being with my peeps, not knowing at the time really. But I saw something that caught my eye in this beautiful pink sort of sky. It was sort of a glimmer of light, shining glimmer of light, and it just sort of did this, and then a quick dart, and then it went here. I'm sitting here going, okay, is that? And then of course, the analytical mind comes in. Is that a balloon? Is that a plane? No, the movements are too strange. But then I listened to my intuition, and my team came in, and they basically were saying, look and watch and enjoy. This is for you. Look and watch and enjoy. This is for you. And I watched it like it was some kind of like Super Bowl game, and it was really pretty. And then the knowing of what was going on, it was so strange because back then, maybe 20, 25 years, 20 years ago or so, there wasn't as much UFO stuff going on. Now it's all over the place. But I knew on a conscious level that that was real, that that was a UFO, and that that was happening, and it was for me. And that was all the knowing I needed. I didn't need to go call, the local reporters or anything. But that was the first one. And then relatively recently here in a small town in North Carolina, I was walking down the street. I think it was with my dog Charlie, and I saw something that was very interesting, and it was very similar, but it looked kind of like one of those bells. I forget the name of it. Someone actually put it in the comment threads in a different interview, but it looked like one of those bells. And then there was no darting, but it was sort of raising up and down, and it sort of kept going, and then it disappeared. And there was no cloud over there. And it was very strange because it was a blue sky, and it simply just disappeared out of sight. So that, to me, those are two very interesting examples of what I consider to be the reality of UFOs for me. So.
But well said. Good.
Well, I do have a question for you, Dan. According to your knowledge, your wisdom, your perspective, your beingness, do starseed look at the world differently than Earth humans?
Ooh. So I think, okay, there's one thing that I think is very important. I, of course, like most of us, do not want to speak for all starseeds. I think we all are very interesting people, but I will just say for me, my experience from a very young age, I had a sense of knowing that was very odd. The majority of my friends were way older than me. I was not interested in watching, games or doing anything that was relatively normal. Playing video games, that was not really my thing. I kind of wanted to bury myself in books and in experiences. I did a lot of swimming, piano playing, anything creative. So for me, I had a very hard time having regular conversations with people because I just felt they were so mundane. And it's so hard because I don't want to be judgmental, but I felt like there was so much missing and lacking in the conversation. And even with my family growing up, that was very, very hard because it felt like I was raising parents that to me felt like angsty teenagers. And I was like, what is going on? So like I had to parent my little brother who didn't really have parents. I had to be his mother and father. My older brother, I don't want to go there. So I felt very alone, very, very, very alone. And I thought it was because I'm gay, maybe I just feel odd. Well, I think that was a part of my journey that helped me be okay being different, and then the whole having cancer thing, But again, one of my first memories that I can recall, and it is very strange, and not many people have memories at such a young age, but I remember being in a crib, but it wasn't a crib. It looked almost like a changing table, or at least that's what it felt like, because I didn't see bars or anything. I was just a changing table, and I did not have a lot of control over my body, which kind of was strange to me. There was a lot of strangeness and oddities in my life growing up, and so I eventually made my way to look out the window, and I yearned to be out there in the sky. Like I yearned to be out there. And I looked around eventually, and I felt, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Kind of, because nobody was there. I felt extremely abandoned, like extremely abandoned. And that abandonment feeling did continue to occur in my life in several iterations. So hopefully I didn't go off on a tangent, but hopefully that answers your question. I think the starseed journey is individual because we live in a multiverse of multiverses and stuff, many different galaxies, many different beings. And those of us who hold a certain connection to certain beings hold that lineage and then the lineage of so many others, including our human existence. So, depending on our own unique vibration and frequency, um, we all tend to feel a little odd in our skin. And I think that's one of the major um, connections, the oddity, sometimes even the abandonment, and then the calling for a mission, yearning to maintain a steady purpose. Because if not, it almost feels like life's not worth living. And not many humans I know live that way. They're just, cracking the beers open and doing their thing. But for me, I'm like, is that in line with my mission? So, anyways.
I I love this because that really describe how so many star seed who have come to this planet really as a calling to really help to raise their consciousness, bring about higher light. And it's all about what we were here to do. So we're feeling a calling to take on leadership position, whether it's to inspire others, being a way shower, do some great works, maybe ends on being an author and inspiration, and even just allowing yourself to be a powerful light. So that's very much intertwined with the star seed. The overall, what I call the earthly soul, the earthling soul, those who are souls are more familiar with the third density frequency way of living. They're familiar with physicality. They're very comfortable with that. Whether they've been on Earth for so multiple incarnation, or they may come from other planetary system of a very similar third frequency or
Yes.
third density frequency. So to them, it's just normal. It's natural, and they are on a very different mission. After time clearing karma, understanding lessons, learning. So they won't have the same thrive or the same perspective as we do because they're simply evolving at different level. And I have encountered those earthling souls and I bless them. It's just we're on a different mission, right?
Absolutely. And I know I'm speaking, to you all that you understand, but there is almost too, in my opinion, a strong sense of, and I don't know if it's innocence or gullibility, but I don't want to say that in a negative way, but there is something about that within the Starseed experience, because I will say, my goodness, the things that I have survived that many people would have been like, oh my gosh, how did you do that? Why did you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I'm following where my intuition's leading me. Now, getting out of a certain situation and surviving it and seeing the joy of what had been created and the collaborative sense of the individuals that came into the picture and this overwhelming sense of something was transformed within it that I was simply just a part of, and I had a small role in or a big role, whatever, is very interesting. So, like for instance, my earthly husband, he is 100% earth made and earth lived, and he knows all the systems and the taxes and this and that. And I'm like, oh my God, like I can't even grasp it now. Yes, I have my PhD. God knows I've done a tremendous amount of research. But man, oh man, oh man, when it comes to the things that most humans take for granted and that they're like, you should know this, I still don't even understand. And that's hard. Yeah.
Welcome to the club. Thank you, Dan, for being so understanding. Um, we know I'm Peter and I, my husband and I, were preparing a private retreat in May in Glastonbury, and I have to figure out how much I'm going to charge people. It it is such a task. I can't even sleep over it. I'm like, what am I going to do? This is such a difficult task. I can hear my friend Jeff going, "Oh, here they go again. It's so easy. You just sit down, punch the numbers, it's done." But for us, it's an extraordinary task.
It's a
It's
simple
so
spreadsheet. Just enter and press, just
oh,
put it in.
no, it's not simple spreadsheet. Somebody, and I want to thank Melanie for this.
Yeah.
She made a spreadsheet for me, and it was wonderful and everything. And it took me 2 weeks, and I couldn't do it. I told her, I said, I can't do it. She said, follow your intuition. I said, okay. I have
Yep.
to use the holographic field. And I just imagine what the numbers would look like. And this is what I'm going to do.
Yes. There was a point when I think I was in maybe third grade or something like that, and there was a math game that was going on. I may have said this before, but I did not understand what they were doing, but I literally had the answers. I knew what the answers were. So I would raise my hand when she's like, okay, well, who knows even before she even asked. And I would say the number that came to me intuitively. And she looked down at her thing and she was like, how did you know that? I'm like, I don't know. I just knew it. So, oh, no. I just didn't know. And then when I got up to the board to explain back in the old days with the chalk, I love those days.
Chalk on a blackboard? What's that?
No, but I just was told, I did what I was told, and I just did these things. And I stood back and I didn't even realize that it was really me that did that because it didn't feel that way. Similarly to how I write the books and vice versa. So yeah, I'm with you, Vivian. I completely understand. And it's frustrating, but also very funny because to us, Jeff, it's like, okay, how much do I tell people to charge for my knowledge to or whatever to disseminate, or how would I take into consideration all these complexities? And Jeff's like, $40 for this and that, no big deal. Yeah, I get it.
I know. It's just not that, it is a big deal. And I can do complex healing allographically and restructuration and working on the brain. That's easy. But a spreadsheet with numbers and to see, no, that's just, I feel like I feel like I'm being compressed. I'm in the ocean. It's just so compressive and unnatural. But see the energy here. This is why you need to come. This is why we need to bring you back. Then we have a question for you for the audience. If it's okay, well, I'll ask the question. Stones of Destiny is asking, what does hooray mean? I know I mentioned that to you from your bio earlier. So what does it mean?
Ahorai.
Hooray.
So they have never said how many times I don't feel I need to ask them where do they come from, who are they, la la la, because it's like they don't really give those answers. They don't even care to go there. So I've learned how to be more receptive to their answers rather than prodding them for answers. So that sort of comes from my research into the beings that I can see or that they tell me glimpses of where they come from. So when I had my first like mini past life regression, I saw myself as a blue being and I looked around and I saw what it looked like and this and that. So I got small glimmers of what that life was like on a different planet. So the Ahorai is basically people of Ohora within the Arcturus star system. So it's a planet within the star system. So for me, I try to be very honest. They have never specifically told me where they're from because I don't care. All I know is that they are loving, they are kind, and they are wise. And every single time I tap into them and I allow myself to be tapped by them, it is only love and joy and wisdom. And that's really all I care about. So.
Beautiful. I mean, it's just exactly. And you can tell when you're really working with the Arcturians, you're working with the essence of who we are. And you can tell then just the way you describe them, your relationship in your own words, your own vibration. It's truly a vibrational soul essence experience that transcends so much. So it's so refreshing for me to hear that. Yes. I want to bring up the other book that you gave me so beautifully, and I'm so grateful for that. This one is called Chronicle of a Nocturne Envoy, Message of Hope for a New Generation. So I want to show everybody. And I had the joy also to immerse myself in, again, one of my favorite chapter, 15 Core Principles. That was amazing. How that thing, I feel like the energy going, yes. Can you tell us a bit about this book?
If I will be honest with you, you know how channeled material goes. I can't quite remember a lot of it.
Of course.
I will probably need the book in front of me. But chapter 15, Core Principles, I think that actually has a lot to do with my multi-viewing textbook and how I created this 5-month program based upon the channeled information that I got from my guides. And so it's funny because in that book, you will see some of the stuff that Dr. Charles Forthright is disseminating is information that's within my textbook. So it's pretty cool. So core principles, I can't quite go into it. I'm sure your audience, hopefully they've read the book or at least know that chapter. But yeah, basically the core principles were what is being taught from a macro and a micro level through my multi-viewing life coaching program. Yeah.
Thank you. That's why I want to bring it up, because I really resonate deeply with that chapter. But there's a lot of things I resonate. But when I travel, I feel like I was traveling to a very specific realm
Mm.
of the book. And you talked about earlier about protecting the children. And I would say, especially the new souls who have returned, the star seeds, um, those who have come back in such with the purity, they bring such a high level of presence. What would be some wisdom in ways that we can work more with the children, helping them, coaching them, supporting them?
Yeah. So it's very interesting because as I was writing the book, I think I was on chapter like 12 or 13 or something when a friend of mine, Mark Sabas, put me in contact with Sherry Divband, who has the Aramis Learning Center. And so I'm literally like between the book and I somehow got a phone call with Sherry and we had a fantastic conversation. And it was almost like we were the same person because we had a lot of similarities, especially the way we think and write. It was very interesting. And she's telling me about her center. And I'm like, in my book, we created a center that is just like this. And so we were comparing things and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is blowing my mind. So what I think is very important that the book describes is we, of course, are only on this earth for a very limited time. And it's my humble opinion as a starseed that we want to make the most of this and leave not just a legacy per se, which may have some, egoic points to bear there, but I would say we want to leave this world far better than we found it. And I think that's something that is like morally within us, I believe, at our core value as star seeds, those of us who came here to Earth during this time of great social upheaval to try and help the future of not only this planet, but also the children on this planet. So one thing that I think is very important is, and I don't want to get too, controversial, but I recognize that with my beautiful dog, who is my only sort of example of having a child in this lifetime for almost 15 years, in the beginning of his life, I followed some of the veterinarian's recommendations of vaccines and everything else, some of them. And I saw, and I knew intuitively what was going on. He had an unfortunate reaction to one of them, and I said, never again. So I refused for probably the last 10 years. And I said, I'm not getting him anything. I don't care if people think I'm a bad person. I don't care. But the reason why my 75-pound Labrador is still alive and kicking, he's enjoying his life tremendously, is because I make his food every single day. It's all organic. And no vaccines at all. And he is completely, every time anyone sees him, they think he's 6 years old. So again, there's no judgment involved, but I think that we need to stop. We need to stop and recognize how much we as adults have been lied to. Okay. We need to come to terms with us as adults recognizing, holy bazungas, we have been lied to from a very young age. And then from that wisdom, figure out a way in which we can move forward and make better decisions. And then from there, then we can focus on children so that we're not continuing to push our own traumas onto children. So that's where I am, and I'm teaching at the Aramis School, and I'm teaching piano and voice lessons and a few other things. It's really fun. But I've also been teaching piano and voice to students from the ages of 6 onward. And because I call my business or my schools a healing and performing arts studio and or center, it attracts a certain type of person who is looking for that transformative aspect to their performative training. So it's not just, wrote line by line. It's how can we make this a larger lifetime journey, and how can the creative arts be a part of all this? So last thing I'll say again is relishing and recognizing the wisdom of children, but also to understanding the realities per se of these are very small, precious beings. We don't want to make them adults too soon. Give them the type of love that we have been able to hopefully give to ourselves as adults as we've been learning through our own traumas, and relishing and relinquishing those types of experiences so that we can devote much more of our time and energy to raising the new generation. Now, for me, as someone who doesn't have human children, maybe one of these days that'll change. Maybe I'll foster, adopt, who knows? But I see my students as my children, and I see people regardless of age around me. When I walk Charlie, when I have social engagements, I do my very best to treat everyone as the precious children that are within inside of them. The precious souls. That we're all a part of this journey. So, children are our future, and it's very important for us to focus on not only our own journeys, but what we have learned and what we continue to learn from our own individual journeys to pass on to our children as wisdom, because we miss that. Our elders are not respected, and hopefully we can be the elders in the next few decades for the ones who've gone after us. So.
Oh, very well said, Dan. And in fact, I wanted to acknowledge everyone who was with us live with all the amazing comments, a lot of agreeing with you. Lovely, you have such a beautiful energy. They can feel your presence. They can feel your heart energy, whether it's relating to their pets, cats and dogs, people themselves, animals, children, of course. So there's a lot of energy going on in the chat room, and I want to acknowledge that going on, definitely. And honoring life, I feel like it's returning to living by the essentials, as my group always says. Returning to recognizing. I like the recognizing life. I like what you said about the elders. And that's one thing that I've been receiving in terms of transmission is to reunite the star seeds of all generations so they can all learn from each other. And the pioneers have come before us, and even you, Jeff. And then the pioneers have come in between. And then those after us to bring back that the starseed generational lines together to really learn from each other and supporting from each other.
Yeah.
Okay, now Dan, have you noticed that the children now are more receptive than we were at a younger age as far as the spiritual upbringing? It's like they just automatically know. We have to meditate, vibrate, blah, 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 to get to the point where they're at right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that receptivity is something that, of course, is innate and natural. And that's, of course, why they're being attacked so much, from all this crazy stuff going on. These, again, I don't get too political, but these let's just say happenstance chemical spills that just so happen to be going on all over the country, et cetera, world. It's all, trying to attack the children and our sense of well-being and whatnot. But yes, they're much more receptive, and that's what's so hard, because as children growing up, I'll just speak from a 40-year-old, born in 82, and growing up in the 80s, I was, was kind of beaten into you to grow up, shape up, be a man, do this and that, don't feel so much, la la la. And now it's almost completely opposite. You'll have parents asking, youngsters, or if they've, depending on their level of conscious development, almost being shocked at how much children know. I will say this, in my own family, I was kind of on the cusp of, I don't know, Dolores Cannon said some few of the waves, but I guess I was second and third wave, kind of, I don't know. But I was always the one questioning things, in my family, like, whoa, hold on a second. Well, but why do we have to do this? It's certainly not working when no one's happy. Like, how can we? And even just that, hearing that from, hearing that, see, I have to laugh because it's
Screenshot that one.
true. Yeah. Hearing that from a child, a normal parent or whatever, be like, oh, how dare he say that? But that's just where we are, and that's where we will be, because the paradigms are shifting and the systems are breaking down, and our souls know it. So these youngsters are very malleable and pliable, and they have to be taken very good care of, but also to tell them some of the realities of what they may experience, but also to not temper their imaginative experience, because they are the ones that are going to be creating this future.
Yeah, and they're not going to stand for it. Like, we were
Yep.
brought up to, this is how you do it. This is what you're supposed to do. But these
Yep.
kids now, they're going to take the bull by the horn and going to say, no, we're going to do it this way.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good point.
Well, the new generation is this is what we call the reversal of thought system.
Mm.
And we're no longer just accepting things as they are because it's been this way, it's tradition.
Mm.
I always says, okay, well, where does tradition come from? What is the purpose behind it? What is the point of origin? Or is tradition? Says who? Since when? So, I've been questioning. Good question, right?
Yeah.
Tradition is stagnation.
Mm. Especially if it's not working, or especially
Right.
if you can see ways in which, okay, change is inevitable. This universe is based off of vibrating molecules that really don't stop. Stagnation is death. How can we take some aspects of traditional wisdom and find some things that are worthy of bringing into the future? But in general, if you're only doing something because that's the way it's been done, and you don't have an opportunity to question it or potentially make it better, that's not very scientific, and that's not very smart, so yeah.
Indeed. Indeed, Dan. Well said. I'm going to change gear a little bit here. I'm curious. I feel there's so much change going on in 2023. I
Mm,
really feel there's a certain pulse, and even in the ley lines, the
mm,
grids shifting, even the ancient site, I feel like there's a lot of change. And I would like to know if you have received any guidance, whether it's to the Arcturians, the Andromedans, those you work with, or even to your own higher self wisdom about 2023, the pulse of the changes coming in that we are feeling.
mhm. One thing I'm gonna say, um, I don't think they want me to necessarily say this one part, but I remember when I was getting a download, and this is a little vulnerable, so hopefully it doesn't sound odd, but again, who cares? I'm in good company. I got this amazing download. They were showing me, they were giving me a comparison between constellations and male and female bodies, and how the points on male and female bodies differ, and the sacred geometry with the ley lines of those points, and how they are differentiated, and then how they come together to either create new life, and or it's mind-boggling, the information that they gave me. But I saw, in essence, a different geometric shape that boiled down to a triangle, oddly enough, for men, and a circle for females. And this is very strange, but I have a feeling this may go into my next book, because the way in which they provided this information was unbelievable. They showed me visions of galaxies, and then two human beings, and then they gave me like a close-up, and then they gave me a constellation points, shoulders for men, hip bones, and then it was just fascinating. And then they were showing me the circular middle section of females, and life, and this and that, and it was remarkable. So, and that's the hard part when I get information from my guides, and it's like, how do you explain it in human terms when there's such feeling tones and clary sentience involved in this type of stuff? But I will say that yes, I have been witnessing through our mediums, our channels of information, communication, exchange, social media, etc., that we are going to be the ones who are disseminating more truth into the world. We are doing that, and we cannot look to our, they're saying, saviors of authority, whom we have voted in, to make these major changes for us. But I will say that they will be stepping in pretty soon after we have fully seen the magnitude of what we have thought were our choices in selections, but weren't really per se. But we are coming into this complete understanding through the Great Awakening of our place on this planet and the magnitude of lies that have occurred. So we have to allow this to gently come into ourselves. They're showing me kind of like a rainfall, to like let it fall through us, to briefly acknowledge these types of things, but to not let it fester and sit, similarly to how Jeff was describing this energy of stagnation. We have to continue to let it flow through us. And if we are charged with being aspects and part of this dissemination of information process, then to do so, but to do our very best to try to frame it with a modicum of transformative energy. Because if not, we're only giving more of that negative energy within it. So for 2023, I did speak with the Alliance of Experiencers, Dana Dunbar and Aurora Grace, wonderful two people, very, very nice people. I did give a bit of a rundown at the end of last year as to what my team thought this year would be. And I'm actually seeing some of those predictions occurring. I did see, unfortunately, much more social upheaval, social media aspects, new social medias and platforms being able to be better maintained, and more power being given to people after more unfortunate constrictions occurring. I do have a very, very positive future outlook, but we're going to have to continue to witness some of these great constrictions, is what they're calling it, and in order for us to really experience more of that flow. But they're also saying too that it's important for us to step into our power as fractals of source and powerful beings of source, to strip away a lot of the old paradigms that are no longer working, and to step more into our power and to help more people, and then also focusing more on the children. I hope that answered your questions. I can go more, but I don't want to talk too much. So,
Oh no, this is perfect, and this is very much. We have about just about 8 minutes left to the
mhm.
completion of the show, so you can, if you have any more thing you would like to share. And once again, I'm going to show your website on the screen so people can find you.
Yeah,
And make sure you connect with Dan, multiviewing.com and danseda.com.
yeah,
If there was anything else you wanted to add, this is really much in sync with I have been receiving. It's just the way they talk to me. The language is a bit different, but it's ultimately leading to the same
yeah.
point. But if anything else you would like to add, please.
Yeah, they are saying something about fear, the concept of fear, and fear has been weaponized, and they're sort of showing me an interesting evolution of human beings, how fear was felt and understood differently. It was much more of a bodily response, and now this concept of fear has been tackled much more on the psychological standpoint. So we have to really guard our psychology and our psyche a lot more. And they're saying make sure to connect more with the heart center, and recognizing the heart mind connection, because then we'll be able to bypass any what are they saying, nefarious psychological warfare or whatever that continues to play a part in our social existence. But yeah, that this fear, do not give in to the fear. Recognize the fear for simply what it is, and know that you can combat the fear with love, which, it seems a little cliche, but it's actually true. And the more we can learn to love ourselves and the world and our children and our neighbors, even though it's very hard because we all come from different backgrounds, if we just remain a presence, um, that presence will be felt and our light will be seen and our work will be done. But it's never really done until we leave this plane, but our work will be accomplished, so.
Absolutely incredible. And I want to show, we don't do that very often, but I want to show someone comments. Megan say something amazing. I want to show it right here. Megan says, fear,
Ooh.
fall evidence appearing real. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I like
I love
that.
that. Um, I feel like it's supporting what you just shared so well. And you are absolutely right on. We are beyond cliche here as we're returning to the essential of teachings. The more love
Mhm.
from directly prime creator and the more frequency of light you hold in your sacred space, well, fear has won't be able to coexist in that same frequency. So that's also part of another layer that we want to bring to support of what you're saying, Dan. Very, very important here. This is really core teachings. We're not here to feed your mind. We're here to help to feed your heart and your soul. This
Mm,
is where things are, right?
mm, absolutely. Thank you.
No, no, thank you. Absolutely, 100%. Jeff, a few words or a question or something you'd like to add?
Just everybody to keep meditating and stand in your energy as much as you can. So important.
Yeah.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. So I have a little fun exercise, a little fun project for all of us. And of course, everyone listening and will be listening. So my husband and I are going to the island of Maui over the next few days. I'm going to be there for to support the work of the Stargate people of the retreat. And part of the reason why we're going to be to Maui is also to bring back the activation of ancient Lemuria. And what I was told is the Lemurian codes of light. Number one. Then in May, we're going to Glastonbury, and our group was granted private access to Stonehenge at
Wow.
sunrise.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll announce to see, it's part of our Patreon community, but if there's some seat open for the public, I'll announce it. We're going to be in Stonehenge on Sunday, May 28th,
Mhm.
inside of this beautiful ancient structure of stones at sunrise. And what I receive is that the guardians are waiting for us. The
Mm.
masters, the guardians are waiting for us. So here's my little fun project for all of us. How about we all anchor the sacred light moving from Maui to the Lemurian energy to the heart of the planet to Glastonbury, right in Stonehenge, holding sacred space with us on Sunday, May 28th,
Mm.
to feel the energy to be with us and to bring the light back and to elevate the frequency on the planet. Does it sound good?
That sounds wonderful. I was lucky enough to go to Stonehenge a few years ago. Powerful place. Powerful.
Well, there you go. And Manuela says, yeah. Yeah, Manuela is one of the members who's coming.
Yeah.
So just to feel the energy is just to tell you how much things are shifting on the planet. So much. So, so much. So make sure you connect with Dan. I strongly encourage you to go on Amazon, get board books. You can see
Mm.
first one here, and then the second one. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. The first one was a Starseed's Journey, and the second one is Messages of Hope.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
get both. Get both. Get both, immerse yourself in the teaching, immerse yourself. It's an incredible journey. It is absolutely an incredible journey. I recommend both books. So just make sure you go on Amazon. Dan, always a joy to have you. And our time together went into a time warp very,
Mm.
very fast. So we're going to take 2 weeks off here on the Infinite Star Connections because I'm going to be traveling. And
Mhm.
so we're coming back live here on Sunday, March 12th. And this time, just for that time on Sunday, March 12th, we're going to be live at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, which will be 4:30 Eastern time, because we know that on March 12th in the US and Canada, daylight savings begin.
Mm.
So we're going to go back to Pacific for Arizona, and we're going to be 3 hours behind Easter time. So make sure you tune in. We'll make the announcement Sunday, March 12th, 1:30 Pacific, which is going to be 4:30 Easter time, everyone. We have a wonderful guest, Rob Potter,
Yeah.
the organizer of the Mount Shasta Conference. The Venusian Connection is a great friend of Dr. Ray Keller. It's going to be amazing journey. But then once again, thank you for being you. Thank you for being on the planet.
You guys, it's such a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Much love, everyone. We appreciate you. Thank you for being with us all the time. We have a large community from all over the world, and it's because of you. So together, remember, we are far more powerful than we
Mm.
can ever be apart. Namaste, everyone. We'll see you on March 12th, right here. Much love.